Hi everyone, I'm Joey. This is the first video in a series where I'm making an ambassador's dining table. One of the foreign ambassadors to New Zealand requested that they need a large formal dining table. It's got to extend quite a lot and it needs to look nice and all the other things. So that's where we're going today. I wanted to mention as well, I'm pretty excited actually that my local timber merchant that I've used for 10 years have decided to sponsor the channel, which is awesome. So shout out to BBS Timbers. If you're here in New Zealand, go there, have a look. There's details down below. But yeah, big shout out to those guys for helping me out. Anyway, let's get on with building the base to this extension dining table. So almost all of the tables being made out of Sapelli mahogany. The first step is to break down some of the large boards and start making the top frame, which the legs will attach to. Once all the pieces are dressed up, I can straighten it out on the sliding table. Now this top frame of the table is quite structural, so I'm joining it together with mitered mortise and tenons just to make sure it can take the load. So I start the mortises with my mortising machine, which can only reach a certain amount of depth. So then I move on to my drill press to get the rest, or as much as I can with the drill press at least. At this point I realize I should probably start gluing up my big leg blanks. So that stack of timber there is all for the 4 legs, and I've got to cut them and dress them up. Right, while the blanks are off drying, I can get back to cutting my mortises, and I take them to the bench and really just start taking away what I can with my chisels. Now my chisels couldn't quite reach as deep as they needed to, so I just take the corner off the tenon, which is probably a good plan anyway. Clean up the tenons as much as I can and use that little plane to fit them to the mortises as well. It turned out to be a pretty tricky thing to clamp up. The miters naturally want to keep moving around, so I managed to get there in the end. I have this Veritas box clamping jig with, and with the extensions, it fitted just perfectly and did the job exactly right. So that was a good save. And with the frame complete for now, I can move on properly onto getting these legs sorted out. I'll explain in a little bit what's going on here, but essentially what I need to do is create a blank where the glue lines are running across the corners of the stock. So the difficult part with these legs is really that they are on compound angles, and because of the size of the stock, it just complicates everything really. So the first thing I need to do is obviously dock the blanks to length on the compound angle, and then create the cheeks for the tenons, and that kind of caused some problems of its own because of the compound angle. But I sorted out this jig, and it seemed to work pretty well. So with that done, I can then kind of go back to more traditional tools to form the actual tenon. That's kind of Now back onto the bandsaw, where it's relatively easy work in following the lines that I drew from the template. With the first set of sides cut, I need to tape on my offcuts back onto the blank, and then I can turn at 90 degrees and cut the other side. I clean up the bandsaw marks first on the my little bobbin sander, and it's a good way to finesse the shape as well. Then into the vise, where I can use some of the offcuts from the legs to hold it in place, and can spoke shave and clean up what we can, reduce some of the machining marks, and then really after that it's on to hand sanding and scraping. At the moment I have Craig in the workshop helping me out in the school holidays, so he's getting on to sanding while I can also do some sanding. Okay, so just wanted to explain a little bit about why did I go through all that effort to make those big glue up blanks to cut these legs out. Why go to the effort of having the grain on a 45 degree across the top? Now, so I guess the easiest way to show you is with this older leg, which is for another project which has been put on hold for years. So this is actually a lamination of a lot of 20mm thick pieces of red oak. Now on this side, you can see, it might be difficult to see, but there's really just a few glue lines. There's some color variation, but it's not outrageous. On this side, you've got a really distinct line that's running perpendicular to the shape of the leg. There's one here, one here, one here, one here, and that's as the shape of the leg is coming in and out of some of the different thicknesses of timber, we end up with a line going the wrong way, and it just looks terrible. So this is something you have to do when you're making bigger legs, is use glue up laminated stock. So that obviously is not a good look. So by running the glue up and cutting it, so the grain, the glue line is running on the 45 degree, there's a join here that follows the shape of the leg, that finishes there. There's another join just here, a little piece there, and the main joint on this one is just off the ridge of the leg, it's just off to the side, and you can spot that if you're really looking for it. But there's no big sharp lines going across the leg, and that's what we're after. Now what I haven't showed here is I enlarged the underside, or the top side of the frame around the mortise to accept wedges all around all four sides of the tenon. This allows me a little bit of slop in the legs. You'll see why shortly. I need a little bit of wiggle room to fit the braces that go between the legs. Now, I wasn't really sure at all how I was going to get these cross braces in place, so I was just taking it one step at a time and essentially making it up as I went. With the 4 corner joints complete, I could work out how long the braces actually had to be, and I made up some test braces just so I could make a bunch of mistakes on those. And to get the legs to seat down properly onto the frame, it was just a matter of continually trimming the brace and adjusting the angle on it, so everything was sitting just how it should. With the first brace in, I could work out where the cross was in place and what angle that was on the brace. It's a little hard to see, but I oversized the notch in the halving joint, and that way I could actually get my pencil right into the position that it needed to be. I wanted to add some dowels into the cross braces and the leg join, so drilled some holes, used a center point, and kind of eyeballed everything because there was nothing really to line anything up with. I'm using epoxy to glue all of this together, and I'm adding a little bit of black oxide just so if any glue shows, it's not quite so terrible as yellowy old epoxy. Alright, that's it for this episode. I'll catch you on the next one where we're going to get on to making the sliding extension runners. See you later, everyone.